it's Kai Love, and first of all, I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the daddies out there. For those who know me in real life or have been following me on social media, or even listening to me back in the days of the podcast, you know that I adored my father, and to have this day here and not be able to like see him and kiss him and touch him and dance and laugh is certainly difficult. But I'm doing some self-care, so I'm gonna be all right. But I wanted to share a story about my father and hope that many of you take this day to honor and uplift your father and anyone who played a fatherly role in your life. So in 7th grade, I was chosen to be inducted into the National Junior Honor Society. And let me back up a little bit. My father had like 76 jobs. Like, we knew he had like a main job, but he also had like other jobs because he felt deep in his spirit that him caring for his children, caring for his family was important. Like, that once he became a father, that his main responsibility was to ensure that his children were okay. So he did lots of things, legal things, to ensure that we were able to live in a good neighborhood. We drove nice cars. We went to good schools. We had good opportunities growing up. And because he worked so much, I used to always have a bit of anxiety about him showing up. Because, as children and even as adults, we do things to make our parents proud, and we want to see them out there when you're doing the thing that makes them proud. But I used to have a lot of anxiety because he had so many jobs, and I would be concerned about him getting his appropriate rest, and was he going to be able to make it in time, and which job was he at, and was that going to fit into his schedule. But he always showed up. Sometimes late because of work or traffic or other things, but my dad always showed up. So this particular story is about me being inducted into the National Junior Honor Society when I was in 7th grade. And my dad had already told me earlier in the day that he had so much to do and he was going to try to make it, but for me not to get my hopes up if he didn't make it, and to not be so disappointed in him because he was out, doing what he needed to do to make sure that the family was well taken care of. And my neighbor. So he talked to me about it, and I just had resigned and that he wasn't going to make it. Sort of. So I saw my mom out there, and you know how it is when you're sitting waiting for someone to come into something and your back is to the door, so you're constantly turning. Every time you hear noise or something, you're like constantly. And so the way our school's auditorium, the little like multi-purpose room, was set up, they always had like the mics that were hanging down towards the stage so that they would pick up the sound, so people in the room would be able to hear clearly what was happening in the stage area. But what that also did was pick up the sound sometimes from those first 2 rows, which is why they would always say, be courteous to your neighbors, keep your side conversations to a minimum, and all of that. But my mother, she's a perpetual front row sitter. You know, she's going to get there 7 hours early and she's going to stake her mark out in that front row. So she was sitting in the front row and she had a seat in case my dad made it. But of course, I didn't think he was going to make it. And of course, people were trying to get that seat. And she would be like, "Excuse me, this seat has my purse in it for my husband." Getting the people together. Um, so the ceremony went on, and it was about a two-hour ceremony. And they called us in alphabetical order. Um, so I knew that I had a little bit of leeway time, if you will, before they got to my name. But, you know, they went through the A's and the B's and C's, and I just kept looking, and I kept looking, and I kept looking. And then I just stopped because it was just making me too nervous. It was giving me too much anxiety. And again, this was before, you know, the kind of that y'all knew was born. So I was very shy, very introverted, and really didn't want to be seen, and, you know, just kind of had quiet energy and was getting nervous because I knew they were going to be calling my name soon and I was going to have to go up to the stage and do the thing. So the moment that I stopped believing that he wasn't coming was the moment that he showed up. And boy, did he show up. Now, again, I told you my mother was in the front row with the seat next to her waiting for my father to arrive. Of course, at this point, the ceremony is going. They're now calling the children up. That means he's late. But he ain't care. So he marches through the center of the multi-purpose room, causing a bit of the ruckus. My father has a very deep, resounding voice. It has great echo in his chamber. His heart was big. That's what I've always said. And he's making his way up the middle, and he sees my mother, and he's just like, "Hey, here, I'm here with my baby. I'm here," making all type of noise, and you know, all the kids is looking like, "What's going on?" So my mother says to him, "Why was you late?" My father then says, with this deep, resounding voice, and probably the clearest thing that I've ever heard on a microphone since, he said, "Because I had the runs, you know what I'm saying? I had to make a couple pit stops and let that shit go." Which, of course, the microphones picked up. It resounded as loud as, again, anything that I've ever heard on a microphone. And total hilarity. The crowd just burst up in laughter. And certainly, you know, if I was a different type of child, probably, I would have been more embarrassed. I would have been mortified that my father was on the microphone talking about taking a dump. But I was just elated that my daddy was in the house and he was going to see his baby get her National Junior Honor Society certificate. And that was pretty amazing and special. As I said at the beginning of this video, my father showed up. And some of you fathers out there may think because your money ain't right, your life ain't right, you may have a strenuous relationship with the baby's mother, that ain't right. Your baby mama might not like your new little mama, that ain't right. You may not be feeling your best, your health ain't right. But brothers, men, show up for your children. Show up. Even if it's late, show up. You don't know how much your children need you until you're not there. And then that shows up in other ways. I was blessed that I was able to have my father until he turned 81. He lived a good, long life. Because I'm overgrown at this point, child. But some of y'all ain't going to be that lucky. This time that we've been given here is short. I know it feels long on some days, like Mondays. But it's really just a small, short instance of time. You have the ability to turn things around quickly. I know you may be thinking, it's been too long. I ain't talked to them in all of this time. But you can correct that. Show up. Fathers, show up for your children.